It's easy to change a room with new carpet. It's even easier with new carpet financing from the Home Depot. With up to 24 months financing on special order installed carpet with your Home Depot consumer credit card. So make a dramatic change, but make paying for it a little less dramatic. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. With credit approval for qualifying purchases made on the Home Depot consumer credit card. Not available on the Home Depot Home Improver card. Terms and conditions apply. Excludes services purchased in-home. May not combine with any credit offer. Valid July 19th through July 25th.
Blog Talk Radio.
Man, we dedicate our life to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We have attitude. We're rooting, and we go into that fight and to land on the line.
NBA basketball fans, the NBA Banter podcast is back. I'm Chris, he's Marshall, and we're here to discuss everything revolving around the NBA. Now, obviously, the last time we spoke, we mentioned that we had another show or two. We definitely mentioned that we had another show or two. It was gonna kind of matter on timing, right? It was going to come down to, well, when, the Spurs trade Kawhi Leonard. I mean, that's really, sure, Jimmy Butler, Wiggins, or that's obviously on a home front, or some other trade talks that are out there, Carmelo to a lesser extent. There are other trades that can be made and that will be made, no doubt about it. Obviously, the Lakers will probably make a trade at some point, you'd assume anyway. Maybe not, though. Maybe they'll just stand put and stand pat till next year. They'll have plenty of money then. But we had a show or two left this summer. And next thing you know, yesterday the news came down. The Spurs in Toronto make a trade. Kawhi Leonard for DeMar DeRozan. Danny Green is thrown in there. A pretty nice piece off the bench. Potential starter as well is thrown in there. And a first-round pick. So we're going to break this trade down. We'll also talk about some other maybe minor moves that were made. The Celtics actually just made a move not long ago. Well, I shouldn't say it's a move. It's a free agency move either way. They re-signed a guy that they had been talking to for quite some time. So we're just going to kind of discuss maybe a couple other things out there. Obviously, Summer League has now come to a close. We may talk a little bit about that, but it's not going to be a really, long show. But the first thing that comes to mind, I'm going to bring in my co-host Marshall here really quick. The first thing that comes to mind, well, there's a couple. One, the Spurs minus Kawhi Leonard last year held the fort down pretty damn tight. The Timberwolves and the Spurs were neck and neck for that third and fourth spot, basically like through 60 games, let's say, somewhere in that range. And obviously for different reasons, both, the Spurs and especially the Timberwolves, I say tumbling to 8th, but as we know from 3 to 8, it's a 2-game difference. But both of them were unable to hold on to even get that third spot. As we know, Portland got it because they closed better, bottom line. But overall, I did think they had some other injuries on top of it that kind of hurt them as well. And as we know, Jimmy Butler missed 17 games in a row down the stretch, yada, yada, yada. But they held it together pretty good. And considering the situation, considering you have a guy in Kawhi Leonard that doesn't want to be there, that is going to leave, bottom line, he's leaving. He's out the door at the end of the year. So, obviously at the end of next year. So you got to trade him. You got to trade him. Now, could you have held off and maybe trade him a little bit, later this year or even next year, as far as the years go, like by the trade deadline? Yeah, you could have. It obviously gets more dangerous, and also leverage is a funny thing because at times maybe there's an injury. All of a sudden your leverage goes up on the Spurs side. Or as the days and months go by, Spurs leverage becomes less because everybody knows he's leaving anyway. So considering that, to get a first-round pick, that's nice. To get a solid role player that's still developing is nice. But to get DeMar DeRozan, a quality scorer. Now, he's not the all-purpose, especially defensively all-purpose, player that Kawhi Leonard is. But he can score his ass off. And generally speaking, players that go to the Spurs, whether they get drafted or free agency or trade or whatever, they generally get better. They may have a little bit of issues early, like LaMarcus Aldridge had a little bit of, issue early, and he straightened that out. DeRozan, maybe some of his weaknesses on defense, can be hidden in that system. His outside shooting definitely needs to improve, but when you look at the Toronto side, to get Kawhi Leonard, that's a big get. That is a huge get, and to me, Marshall, it solidifies them as the second-best team, whereas I couldn't say that. I don't know if I could say that without this trade. And I know what they did last year, but just the feeling of how, how it ended. It was just kind of to get swept like that after having such, the best record in franchise history and whatnot. But Marshall, I'm going to bring you in now, and I do want to get your take, obviously, on the trade, but another thing that comes to mind is Dwayne Casey, for Christ's sakes. I mean, really, guys? So you're going to go out and get Kawhi Leonard, and that is an if, you got to bring it up, if he's healthy, he's a better all-around player than DeMar DeRozan. I think that's everybody pretty much knows. And not long ago, we were speaking of him as the second and third and fourth best player, definitely top five. But, Marshall, before you give your take, Dwayne Casey, for Christ's sakes, really, dude? So you're going to fire him? He's the coach of the year, and he definitely deserved that award. And then you go and get Kawhi Leonard. You don't think they could be better and still have Casey? You know what I mean? It's just a weird, wacky sports world, to be cheesy as hell, that we live in sometimes, man, where you're going, really, dude? So you got rid of your coach, and now you make a move like this? Why didn't you just try to make a move like this?
Yeah, I think the issue for that was Toronto's been in the same, state of being for the past 4 to 5 years, and Braun's been the issue for most of it. So I think the Toronto.
Yeah, but we knew LeBron was going to be gone, dude. We knew LeBron was going to be gone out of the conference.
Yeah, but I'm talking from a Raptors fan standpoint of okay, guys, we've done this same stick now for 4 years. Are we going to try this again? So I think the move had to happen, and hence, I just whether it was getting rid of DeLowry, combine them together, DeRozan or Lowry, something had to be done. And I'm not saying that this point I agree with. I agree Casey's a hell of a coach, and he got screwed, but there's been plenty of other NBA coaches that have gotten screwed in their past. But I think this was just the first impulse move that something had to happen. And it's easier when the season ends of a decision to make of firing a coach and firing a player, or I should say trading a player. So I get what you're saying, but I just think that they got tired of hitting the repeat button. And even if LeBron was leaving, I don't think that their fan base wanted to go through a.
But that was their
go
main
with
clog. That was their main clog is LeBron. So
I know
that's going to improve right away.
True, but I just don't think they could have come back with Lowry, DeRozan, and Case, even if LeBron was gone.
No. Don't bring in DeRozan to this. It's a trade that was made. I'm talking about just straight up. You don't think they could have brought that coach back? The fan base wouldn't have accepted it, even though they're a very accepting bunch if you think about it, because think about it. They've had these disappointments at the end of the year, but yet there's still a lot of people standing outside the stadium. So it's not like you were losing your fan base.
Well, I just think that it was either you got to trade Lowry, trade DeRozan, or fire Casey. You had to do one of those three things, like, after the year was over, like, quick. And they picked one of the options.
That's not the debate. I agree. I agree you had to do something, but I just disagree that it had to be the coach. When clearly you could trade – at the end of the year, we knew because DeRozan is a really solid player and has improved these last couple of years, I think, at the score. And you also knew that you had Lowry on a contract that you could dump here in a little bit because it's only a 2-year deal, I believe. Or maybe he has a player option. But either way, we won't get lost up in this. Give me your thoughts on the actual trade.
I think the Spurs achieved a minor victory not sending to L.A. because they probably didn't want to, and B, it would have taken a pretty big compromise for them to send them there, or they would have had to basically take in a ton of picks, where they would have had to maybe take a contract like Wilding, or they would have had to do something that probably wasn't in their best interest. So from a Spurs standpoint, you knew the Lakers' books are tight. You probably can't afford to make a great deal. They're not probably going to want to give you Kuzma or Ingram. So I think from their standpoint, it wasn't the worst deal. You get a guy that is basically going to keep the team playing pretty well. I'm not saying that DeRozan is Kawhi Leonard, because when healthy, Kawhi Leonard, I'd say, is probably a top 5 player in the NBA. But you get a guy that can fill in his shoes for scoring points, and you're basically not really, you aren't losing your best player, but you're bringing in a guy that's probably a top 20 player. So from a Spurs standpoint, you're still probably contending for a playoff spot this year, which I'd expect them to get. And, you're kind of, not letting Popovich finish on a bad note, because he's got maybe 1 or 2 years left, and it would be kind of sad for them to finish off his dynasty with, missing the playoffs. So I think that bringing in DeRozan gives you a reassurance of making the playoffs. You still got Aldridge. You still got Rudy Gay. You still got Popovich. I mean, you're still a legit team. From the Toronto standpoint, I definitely think it's a gamble, because if you cannot convince Kawhi Leonard to stay there, even though a lot of NBA writers on ESPN have been saying that Toronto is one of the best cities to live in for NBA players, if you can't keep him to stay there, you probably should trade him before the deadline, because if you don't, he's just a typical rental player and then see you bye. It's been 1 year apiece, I'm going to L.A. And from that standpoint, it does make you kind of wonder, well, I mentioned the Dwayne Casey, Lowry, DeRozan third of a pie. Okay, so you made the first choice to fire 1/3 of the pie. You just traded the second third, and the guy you're bringing in to fill that spot's probably leaving. So then you're really, a year from now, you could be doing this podcast saying, well, Kyle Lowry's chilling up there. Who are his buddies? That's it. So I think that the Toronto GM, I believe Niasse, as I said, is a very confident guy. Some people believe he can make a pitch to keep Kawhi there. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's a 5% chance. You can't say it's zero, Chris, because nothing nowadays is zero. But
we just learned.
He must have had.
It was a 100% chance, from Paul George this last year. A lot of people thought the same thing. You know what I mean? That he's going to L.A. He's going to L.A. He's not going to stay in Oklahoma City. He's going to L.A. And sure enough, he stayed. So I'd say higher than a 5%.
Yeah. So if he can make the pitch to keep Kawhi, then you're sitting pretty good. If a year from now you either lose Kawhi in the off season or trade him for the trade deadline, it's damn, that was kind of a kick to the gut. And now all you got is Lowry with a new coach and a team that's falling behind the Celtics or the 76ers, which are your two main competition points right now. So I would say Spurs, like, pretty much I would give them an A. I mean, they had to trade him. They knew he didn't want to play there. You don't want to have a disgruntled guy sitting on your bench. You had to get something back. You got decent piece back. So I'd probably say a B to B minus right now for Toronto. If you keep him, that obviously turns into an A. But if not, and he leaves before the trade deadline, you didn't really do your franchise a whole lot of good. I mean, it's a risk you got to take, but you got to somehow find a way to steal him.
It kind of matters what you get at that trade deadline too.
True. Yes, all true. Yeah, if you give them to LA and they're willing to give you some picks or again a Kuzma or Ingram, but I think the longer that LeBron plays with either of those players, the higher their incentive goes. So but yeah, so we'll see. But I would lean towards Spurs winning from this trade as of right now, my friend.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, yes, the West improved, no doubt about it, but they made the playoffs basically without Leonard last year. And like I said, through about 60 games, they were right in that third and fourth spot. They actually held the third spot longer than the Timberwolves, who at the time were healthy in that time frame. So they don't have to rebuild anything. I think you make a good point, about, Pop in the last couple of years and whatnot. So I really like the trade. I think it's a good trade. You get a first-round pick. You get DeRozan, who's already under contract. You know he's going to stay. He doesn't have the no-trade clause. You get
3 years.
What is it? Polta or whatever? What's that dude's last name? Jacob.
Jakob, like Podol. Yeah. I mean, that's
or something like that. He's a pretty solid player, and they get a protected first-round pick. Which, they could turn into a role player. It could be part of a package, yada, yada, yada. It is a protected 1 through 20 pick. It becomes a second round. After 1 year, it becomes 2 second-round picks. The Spurs are including $5 million in cash to the Raptors. It's just kind of for the trade kicker luxury tax hit type deal. I like the trade in a lot of ways. Obviously, it is a risk for Toronto. You don't have a guy under contract more than 1 year. You do, though, get rid of some cap. That's for damn sure. And maybe if you're thinking, well, we made a run, and now we're going to rebuild, but we're going to do it a little differently where we keep winning, but we know that we have to retool. Because like you even said, and many people said that, something had to give. No doubt about it. I just personally didn't think it was a coach problem. I thought that you could see every year under him they got better. But, yeah, I do definitely give the Spurs a lot of credit. And you're not dealing with young people, young players per se. And so I think it's a hell of a trade for them. I think that they got pretty much best value. Because you could even say, well, the Lakers, they could have – well, who the hell are they going to get? You know what I mean? It just – not to say that some of these players won't turn into studs, but they still got to turn into them. But what we do know now is Kawhi Leonard's on the roster in Toronto. That's what we do know. That sounds obvious, of course, but we know that now. So let's take a look at the East. That definitely makes them a better team as long as Leonard brings what he can bring. I do think he's a better overall player. He really is. Neither guy can really stroke from three-point land, so that they're not losing anything there, like consistently anyway. But more of a playmaker, more of an all-purpose player, just a bigger, stronger, hey, you want to cover LeBron? We got one now. That type of thing. And obviously, they're going to need some of that in general, just becoming even stronger defensively. And, God, you look at, even Danny Green with the mix of their guards. They're definitely guard heavy now. I think they're a better team. But in Boston is not 100% done, obviously. And who knows? Ultimately, Marshall, this may be the trade that they make to Boston, because we know Boston was, definitely offering some stuff out there to them. They definitely were one of the top teams after Kawhi. There's just no secret about that. And we know Danny Ainge is the mastermind over there, and he always tries to do something to improve his team, and he's pretty damn good at it. But who's the best in the East as it stands? Do you still Boston because of we think that they're going to get Kyrie back and what's his toes? Because we can't just guarantee that they're going to have Kyrie because he's also, there's potential for him to leave as well. In fact, he could be the player that gets traded. You never know. That would be pretty wild, though, because, he's probably going to not sign someplace, and who even knows with that dude, Kyrie. But it still feels like Boston is the best team because of what they did, the youth, in mix of veterans, and the fact that they're missing their two top guys. Now, obviously that blend may work, may not. We don't know yet. It seemed to work good when one of them was there for the first large chunk of the season. Will it work even better with two of them, added to that? Yeah, you can just assume it, but we can't guarantee it. You just don't know. But you assume they're going to be way better, or at least a notch up. Toronto closed the gap going into next year, knowing that they're going to get those bodies back in Boston. I believe they closed the gap, but it's still hard not to think that the Boston Celtics are the best team heading into next year, right? I mean, they closed some gaps, though. I do believe that, and I think I like the trade, but what do you think? You don't think any of this is changed your mind? And it is funny, though, about Philly and how quickly things change, Marshall. I know it's a long question. That's just my style, I guess. But remember when Philly, it looked like everybody was basically giving Philly a ride to the Eastern Conference Final and probably to the finals. The way they handled business there, and you just think, the Celtics, they're just going to be short. They're not going to be able to beat them because they're missing their two guys. It's funny how Philly has just been like, yeah, anyway. So the best two teams are, and Philly's not even in that really. They're in the conversation, but do you think, although they may have gained some ground because they have a better player and maybe more depth or whatever, you still think the Celtics, unless they do something to their roster, you still see the Celtics, being the number one with the target on their back heading into the East without LeBron?
The thing about Boston is, okay, they had a great year this past year, but now you're bringing in two guys who are going to predominantly have the ball in their hands. So you can't tell me, unless you're like a Boston homer, that like all of a sudden like Tatum and Smart and all these guys are going to get, and Brown are going to get so much better, because they're not going to see the ball. So I kind of want to see how Boston develops as a team. I mean, Tatum was the number one stud, and even he's a Dookie, and I don't like Duke players, but that dude had a great year, phenomenal year. He's a great athlete.
Yeah.
But he all of a sudden now becomes your number 3 choice. So he goes from being a phenomenal rookie to a guy that's going to, like, be your third option at best. So I'm not saying this stuff can't work, because if you look at Golden State, I mean, the way they progress with, like, Clay and Draymond and Steph, like, you can push teams up together with a super amount of talent to make it work. But I'll be curious to see how this first year goes, because there's not enough basketballs on the court for Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and Rozier and Tatum all to show the skills they showcased this year if Gordon Hayward and Kyrie are going to be on the court. Because, I mean, say what you want about Kyrie, but, I mean, the guy's not really known for passing. He can score and beat people off the dribble about as good as anyone. Maybe only Harden's better. So he's not really an assist guy. I'm not saying he doesn't pass, but, okay, so Kyrie's going to be your number one guy. And Gordon Hayward has been a guy that's averaged over 20 points his whole career, I believe, or it's very close to that. So, boom, there's
Kyrie's going to be a downgrade on defense, considering what they had, like hustler players too. Just a heads up.
Yeah, compared to a Rozier or a Smart. So I'm not saying that this all can't work, because you clearly have a tremendous coach in Brad Stevens, who I think is a top 5 coach, give or take, on a given year. But yeah, let's see how it works. Now, if you make it work and click, so be it. But I just think that the Boston loves a little bit over the top, because let's see how they mesh together. if all of a sudden you're replacing Tatum with Kyrie, okay, well, that's an upgrade, but does Tatum kind of drift off away to not being that great player that he was this year, and does he not progress? So let's see how it plays out. Now, the same thing for Philly too, Chris. Like, they're not quite as stocked on picks per se, but I think if they'd been a little healthier, they probably would be. I mean, you still got pretty much all the talents in the world there. People believe because of how they've drafted, and that team could be incredibly good. Will Embiid take another step up? Will Simmons learn how to shoot? Can Fultz actually be healthy in his career, for once? And I think it'd be dumb to rule them out.
Because they can improve. They're young enough to improve a lot. And just to piggyback off your, with Tatum going to the third spot, we saw Wiggins go to the third spot, and then all of a sudden they asked him to do certain things that he's never been asked to do in his whole life. And it just sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. So I'm glad that's a good point that you made. That definitely shapes it could shape the whole offense and change the defense as well. But keep going with the Philly and whatnot too. I didn't want to cut you off all the way there.
Well, no, yeah, you're good one. And to go back to that quick, I keep saying it to my boys, but like Klay Thompson, now thankfully when it was Durant and Curry this year, it's like, okay, well now Klay. Now thankfully Klay Thompson's the guy who can be a spot-up shooter. He doesn't need to have the ball in his hands. He's okay. But a majority of players in the NBA aren't like that. To where if you're the third choice and you're incredible at running around picks and jacking up threes, then you're okay. He wasn't affected. But, I mean, right. I guess I didn't watch that many Celtic games, but Tatum's the guy that appeared to have the ball and could ball off the dribble or shoot a three if needed. So, yeah, what kind of progress will he make this year? And yet for Philly, I would just say keep doing what you're doing. You got all the pieces, and I think that if Simmons can somehow become a decent scorer to go along with a guy that can magically pass the ball, then all of a sudden Philly takes an upgrade. But if he stays the guy that can't really shoot even jumpers and all he does is dunk, I think nowadays in the NBA, Chris, that just puts you at such a defensive liability. Or I should say, that gives the other team such a defensive advantage to say, hey, if you're guarding Simmons, unless he's cutting in the lane, you can kind of play off him. Like, you would get crucified if you played off of Harden or Westbrook or Curry or freaking even Antetokounmpo has developed a jump shot, or whatever guard you want to mention now in the league or it's in the West. Like, you can't play off people.
Even Rubio has improved his outside shot.
Yeah.
I never thought that would happen.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not ready to put him in the three-point contest, but he's definitely improved, and he'll take it and be a little more confident. But you're right. The improvement they can make just inside their squad, it kind of resembles what the Timberwolves potentially could be too, where you go, well, it's not about adding all these pieces. It's about improving what we got.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, there's some examples you could use for players making improvement, and with some teams they do it better than others. But I mean, freaking like Harrison Barnes. I mean, that's a guy that was for Golden State and Dallas, and he's made huge progress in his career. And you can name this for thousands of people. Like Damian Lillard's he's continued to take steps up. So, I mean, the chance is there for Philly. I mean, maybe you could try to bring in another player, but I mean, they keep having this mindset of bringing in people like, okay, let's just see how Philly can do. But to wrap up this little circle of teams, Toronto's got a defense that's just as good as Boston, or very close, and has just as much offensive talent, I would say, or very close. So they got Lowry and Kawhi, and the thing Toronto's got is a ton of like agile, like versatile, like power forwards or threes or fours that are all great defensively. Sure do. And you just have you now have a lottery, and you got rid of Podol, who wasn't one of your top people. So you have a lottery of like threes and fours that you can always switch. The guys can score buckets. They're no one defensively like that, and yet Kawhi, who's defensively when healthy, as good as about anyone in the league. So yeah, it'll be curious to see how it plays out. And then I don't know. So I think those three teams will battle. I mean, a team like Washington now really is your time to try to do something. I just think they're so hamstrung.
They got
with the
Howard.
Money.
They got Howard.
it's just you got to be frustrated as a Washington fan to know that you have Beal and Wall and Porter, and you're just kind of trickling outside that top three talk. It's like, what can we do, you know? And I guess the sad thing is the only rumor last year of what to do was to trade John Wall because the team doesn't like him, or him and Beal aren't buddies. So I don't know what the answer is for Washington, but you're wasting a couple of great years, Chris, of Beal and Wall, who were as good of a two-guard tandem besides maybe Golden State and whoever LeBron's with and a few other teams. I mean, you're wasting two guys that are truly in their prime that are almost unguardable. So they got to try to do something. I don't know what it is because they've always had a shitty bench. And maybe they've invested too much money, but, man, it would be so frustrating to see a guy like John Wall.
That wasn't the case this last year, though. They improved their bench a little bit this last year.
You're right. It got better. So do something because you need to at least put yourself in that talk. You got to find a way to improve a little bit, or I'm not saying it can be those things, but yeah. So that kind of wraps it up. But yeah, I would say those three, and then Washington after that. To wrap up, I guess a very long Eastern talk is Milwaukee, and I think we mentioned this in our last show. You best do something like soon, because when that guy Giannis becomes a free agent, I don't think Milwaukee's probably where he's looking at home. I mean, I know that the city's been built around him. He loves it. You know, he came over here. You know, that's kind of just become his new home from how he basically drafted out of nowhere. But if you're in Milwaukee, you got to find a way to impress people more than Philly or Boston or Toronto, because if you lose him, you're back to a dweller team that no one really cares about. So we talked about Toronto having to make moves and Boston making moves, and Philly, what are they going to do? Hell, I think maybe the biggest pressure of any GM in basketball this year, the next year, Chris, in the Eastern Conference is Milwaukee. You got to find a way to say, hey, we have a potential top 5 player in the league who's gonna, be a presence when you got to get
around him.
You don't want to see him go. That because in 5 years,
try. They did get what's his toes in, Bledsoe. They made that move, So that they've shown. But you're right. Yeah, you're right, man. Whatever. The team has to gel. Whatever it is, you got to do something.
Yeah, because that dude, when we're doing this, when all the top players talking about now fade away a little bit, because he's still young. He's pretty damn young. So you got to do something. But yeah, so that's right. That was kind of a long answer, but you think about the trickle-down factor in those teams that are sitting there like Washington and Milwaukee, and it's like it's kind of now or never. You got to make a couple of chess pieces that are moving the right way.
Yeah, and it's funny how sometimes look at Toronto. Last 4 years, they've been building, all for nothing. Maybe they kind of feel that way, and then now this year they're in a hyper mode that we improved, man, but it's only for maybe 6 months, 4 months. We don't really know. It's kind of scary. We're actually kind of going through that with Timberwolves. Obviously, I do think Cat will actually sign, but as far as the Jimmy Butler thing, it's all kind of like it's based off this year. Can they improve inside? Can Wiggins and Cat bring that intensity every single solitary game to further think, all right, dude, I want to be here for my prime. I want to be here for the rest of my career. And real quick, before we get to any other kind of information, there is a guy like Isaiah Thomas, man. I'll tell you what, Denver's done pretty good in the offseason. But before we get there, if this is your first time listening to the NBA Banter podcast, it streams live right here at blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. So it's underneath that umbrella. It's also available at iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Player FM, basically anywhere you listen to pods. And actually through your TuneIn, I think Spreaker now too, but through your TuneIn app, you can actually stream us live on Spotify. We're also a part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, and that's available. If you subscribe to the Grueling Sports Podcast Network, you can stream our show on Spotify, also on iHeartRadio. Head on over to thegruelingtruth.net. That's thegruelingtruth.net. They got a great sponsor over there, mybookie.ag. That's mybookie.ag. Head on over to thegruelingtruth.net. You got basketball, you got football, you got boxing, you got baseball, and everything in between. If you head over to thegruelingtruth.net, you can read an article, you can listen to a pod, and while you're at it, place a bet right there. I'll link it right to the mybookie.ag. We'll probably have, like we said, about, 10 days ago, 9 days ago, 8 days ago, I don't even remember now. But we will probably have one more show. If not more, you never know. It could be 2 shows. You never know. But we basically have a year. Marshall and I do shows year round. Okay, some of them are basketball themed, some of them are college football. So we're basically winding down our year of podcasts together. So late August, we come with the college ball show. Okay, that runs from late August all the way to April. Here's how it breaks down. Late August, college ball show. College footballers are focused all the way to January, right? The national championship. Then in January, we switch to college, since it's college ball, we switch to college basketball. We go college basketball all the way until April. And we do have an NBA segment on that show since we're in that basketball mode. So we do talk NBA as well on that show. Then we go, all the way to April. Once April and the national title game's over, it's all NBA through the playoffs, through the conference finals, through the finals, through the NBA draft, and obviously the NBA free agency. This is our third show, or I think it's the third show on NBA free agency. So stay with us, even though, there's a little bit of hiatus. Enjoy your summer a little bit, and we'll be back before you know it. We're just going to kind of clean up a couple of things and go through a couple of things here. Isaiah Thomas, speaking of Jimmy Butler and other guys that kind of risk that, well, I could take an extension now, but I could make an extra year and an extra $75 million the next year, right? So I'm going to turn this deal down. And knock on wood, Jimmy, I don't want anything to happen to you. But Isaiah Thomas, 1 year veteran minimum, dude, with the Nuggets. God bless him, Marshall. But also Jabari Parker signs I believe a 2-year deal with Chicago. And on a 2-year deal. And on a local note, Bielitse, who's like a power forward / a little bit of a small forward 3-point shooter. He played with the Wolves. They drafted him. He left in free agency. Anthony Tolliver took his spot, which I was pretty happy about. Tolliver had been a member of the Timberwolves a handful of years ago. He's a 3-and-D prototype type guy, and he hasn't had the injuries that unfortunately Bielitse has. But Bielitse signed a 1-year deal, Marshall, with Philly, which I actually like that match. I like that match for him personally. He is no longer. He's informed the team on Monday. He informed the freaking team that he's staying in Europe this season, because he never officially signed the contract yet. He probably agreed to it and was going to have to fly here or something like that. I don't know. But thank God that we went with Anthony Tolliver as a role player rather than signing this guy, because obviously he's a little bit in between. And then another deal, Marcus Smart just came through, I believe, today. Marcus Smart, 4-year deal, 4-year deal, $52 million. That was kind of being worked out over the last, couple of moments. Big news out of Cleveland. Kendrick Perkins is no longer a bully on the bench. He is out of Cleveland, man. That's a big move, Marshall. Big move. No, I'm just kidding. Dante Cunningham, who's just a solid role player. He was with the Brooklyn Nets and the Pelicans last year. He is now a San Antonio Spur. But and you can mention anything you want when it comes to this stuff, but man, Isaiah Thomas, dude. Oh man, you gotta feel for a guy that plays hurt, and it ends up, hurting his career a little bit more. Obviously, they misdiagnosed it in Boston as well. So that kind of messed it up a little bit too. Wow, dude. What a year and a half for this kid, man.
Yeah, it's tough because he was in recognition for being third place MVP voting a couple of years ago. He was probably never going to win the MVP, but his name was being mentioned in the top 3.
Didn't he average 30 points or 29 points or some shit for that 2 years ago?
He was.
Yeah,
he was insane. He went from Phoenix to where there was too many cooks in the kitchen. They had too many guards. Then he went to join Boogie in Sacramento, and that didn't quite pan out too well. And then he went to Boston and just started going off. And I mean, you always knew the dude can shoot. And I think it's even more of a compliment to him because he had to have done something on the court from the defensive end, even though he's short, or else teams don't want him out there. But I mean, he was one of the best fourth quarter point scorers in the league 2 years ago. It wasn't even close. Isaiah Thomas was getting the ball in the fourth quarter and he was going to hit buckets. So it reminds me of the Nerlens Noel. Maybe I hear about that more often because I live down here in Dallas. But that dude passed up a 4-year, $78 million deal, and this year he's making $1.5 million. So, dude, you could have been making about $18.5 million a year, and you thought, nah, I'm good. I'll wait it out. And now you're making $1 million.
And a lot of people agreed with him. A lot of people are like, nah, dude, you can get way bigger money in more years, dude.
Yeah, true. It's a gamble. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. I guess. Damn that. That $78 million compared to $1, it's like Jesus Christ. But that's injuries happen, and there's luck, and there's so many things. But man, leaving all the money on the table, that's brutal. The one talker I want to bring up for you is, and I'm going to bet this just because I think it should be fun, is I'm going to bet, not a whole lot, but I'm going to bet the Lakers miss the playoffs just because it's probably going to be plus 5 to 1 that they miss. It's going to be a huge underdog. So everyone's saying that there's no way LeBron misses the playoffs. Okay, fine. That makes sense, sure. And if Conley and Gasol are healthy on Memphis, I'm not saying they're locked, but they're not a joke of a team. And everyone loves Denver.
They're a good team.
Okay, so
they're a good team. They played down the stretch. They beat or played with a lot of people down the stretch without their 2 stars.
Yeah, so LA is much better. Mention the Lakers, and Memphis is good if healthy, and Denver's good. And everyone loves Denver because they're a growing team. They're keeping all the pieces together. Like you said, they've had a great offseason. There's some talk they could get Michael Porter Jr. during the middle of next year. Okay, so let me ask you, Chris, who's gonna miss? I'm not trying to sound like an idiot saying that I think the Lakers miss. LeBron's not going to do anything, but I think from a betting standpoint, the odds I'm going to get are going to be pretty good. But I think it's fair to say Houston's a lock to make the playoffs. I mean, barring Harden and Chris Paul get hurt, I would say Houston's in. So that's one team. Golden State is 2. I would say Oklahoma City is a for sure 3.
You can't just give Golden State a lock, though, dude. No, I'm just kidding.
I would say Oklahoma City is a 3. We're assuming everyone's healthy, Paul George and Westbrook. Utah.
Well, especially without Melo, dog. I mean, without Melo, if they can get rid of Melo, they'll be in good shape.
Utah's 4. Okay, so now, I mean, Portland. I mean, are we supposed to assume they just fall off the map? I mean, but that's a team that's been just an incredible coach, 2 of the best guards in the league. I mean, I'm not sure who's going to be fine. I mean,
New Orleans.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Timberwolves. Dude, it's Denver. The Spurs.
I mean,
it's crazy,
dude.
The
Spurs. I know. So again, I'm going to bet it. I'm going to be going against a favorite here, but it's not impossible LeBron misses the playoffs. I mean, it sounds crazy to say that, but there's 11 legit teams, and the other point to make is that even the shitty teams that are in the West now have all gotten better. The Suns have gotten better, as we talked about last show. Dallas, I don't think any longer is a joke because you now have Doncic, you have Dennis Jr.,
They're better.
Smith, and now you have Harrison Barnes, and you have DeAndre Jordan. Like, so back in the day, I would say 5 years ago, Chris, the top 10 teams in the West would kick the crap out of the bottom 5, but you can't even do that anymore. So I don't know, brother. Like, I mean, I would say it sounds just as insane to say the Spurs will miss the playoffs as it would to say that LeBron misses them. Like, in New Orleans, like, you have maybe the best player in basketball on a given night. So I just kind of look forward to seeing the crapshoot and a race of who's going to miss. And if all the shitty teams are getting better in the West that are on the bottom tier and they're getting better, it's like, oh my God, it's, you know, because
you figure Sacramento got better if they didn't get worse.
No, Sacramento got better. Phoenix got better. The Clippers aren't great, but they're not a joke. But he had 42 wins last year.
Players, though. They've added quality players. They don't have that one guy, but they got some players.
And the injury bug kicked them in the butt last year. I mean, at the start of the year last year when they had the pesky dude that used to play for Houston, the guard that they had him there. They started the year hot, you know. So would you? I guess it is crazy that LeBron can miss, but I don't think it's nuts. Like, out of the teams we made last year.
I would make that personal bet with you, but I don't think it's crazy to say that. I'm with you. I don't think it's crazy. I mean, I'll gladly take the bet, but I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy.
Let me ask you this then. Would you say that? Would you say that New Orleans or Portland are probably the most likely teams to miss the playoffs and made it this past year?
Yeah.
I guess.
Because I think the Spurs are just as good as they were last year because of, well, hold on. They lost Parker, didn't they?
Parker.
We forgot to mention that Parker signed someplace.
Kind of crazy to think
Danny
about,
Green's gone now, but and Kyle Anderson is gone too.
True.
They're all of a sudden they're more of an offensive team, so maybe they won't. But I just can't. I can't really say that sentence. You know, like the San Antonio Spurs will not make the playoffs. I just said it right now, but it's very strange.
Yeah.
Just as strange as saying LeBron won't make it. And you're only an injury away. You know, from 3 and down, you're only an injury away from not making the playoffs. You think it was tight this year? You're only an injury away.
Yeah.
I mean, look what happened.
I know.
Look what happened and look what happened, especially the Wolves. I mean, they fucking dropped. They had to win the last game in overtime to get in the damn playoffs. I mean, man, yeah, dude, I guess you could say, because they lost Rondo and he was an all-purpose player. They're not going to get Boogie back, although they closed well without him, but he still was there. You could make the point that them two down low didn't really make sense, but then again, Rondo's gone. So that does – he did play well for them last year. He could be a difference maker for sure. So, yeah, and then the thing about Portland is their defense, you know. If you don't defend, you could get out of the playoffs. You know what I mean? You could definitely – and if it wasn't for that nice streak they had at the end, it's not like they were right in the third spot either without that run. So, yeah, dude, I don't know. I mean, even with the injury, I mean, if Butler goes down or somebody else goes down, the Wolves couldn't make it. You know, I think the Wolves are going to be a little better off their bench defensively. If you look at the Wolves, they were, what was it, the 8th or 6th or 7th? If you look at starters, the defense on starters, just straight up starters, because obviously if you're talking about the Timberwolves, you're talking about a Thibodeau team, you got to talk about the starters, right? Because he loves those starters. And we were, I think, 6th or 8th or 7th or whatever in the league on defense. It's once the bench came in, our fucking defense went to shit. I'm not saying we were a top 5 defense overall, but, you know, we have potential to be better. And now with Tolliver off the bench and more of a just defensive-minded a little bit, instead of Crawford. They both can score. They both can hit threes. Tyus is going to get the ball a little bit more than Crawford, because Crawford needed the ball and he couldn't play defense. So although he made, he had some really good games for us and whatnot scoring-wise. But, yeah, I mean, if you're just okay at defense, and speaking of defense and outside shooting, it's not like the Lakers are strong at that. They weren't last year, and did they get better? I don't think they did. They got better defensively. Let me stop that from their free agency. But they still can't shoot from the outside. So that may sneak them in, just their defense and LeBron. I don't know. That's a great question, dude. That is by the way, real quick before we get out of here, Michael Porter Jr., the 14th overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft, just went under the knife. He just underwent surgery in the lumbar spine. No timetable for his return. It's a second back surgery for Michael Porter Jr. Just thought I'd bring that in and right at the end of the show,
Yeah, I saw one little ticker saying that they hope he could be back like sometime in the middle of next year. I just hope the kid gets healthy. I mean, I'm a Zoo fan, so I'm cheering for him. But
2019?
Yeah, this year, yeah.
About, okay, oh my God, I was like, holy shit, that's what they think next year, like the season. I was like, oh my God, that'd be crazy. Hey, he won't play next year,
I guess,
but hopefully through halfway through the next season. So they're thinking like January,
I'm envisioning
February,
next year.
Like that.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
See, dude. Yeah, but you're talking just by January, February, they feel like he can be back.
Yeah. They're hoping so, and I hope the kid gets to show off what he's got. It might take him until the following season to be fully healthy, but I mean, when he said before the draft, "I'm the best player in this draft when healthy," I think he's probably telling the truth, but he needs to get to the point where he can prove it on said court. So, yeah, Denver. I mean, and all you've heard is positive news from so many teams in the West. Like, everyone's in love with the Jazz and Denver, and it's going to be a more of a crapshoot. That West is so brutal. So I know we'll probably won't get the 1 to 16 seed anytime soon for just straight up that's how you make the playoffs, because then those Eastern teams are missing out on money. But in a perfect world, I don't think that's the worst idea. Because the amount of talent we just spoke about is crazy. We just mentioned how there's 11 teams that are truly battling their ass off for 8 spots. But when we talk about the East, it's Toronto, Philly, and Boston, and we're like, the rest are okay. If you had to literally pick the best 3 teams in the West this year, and then say there's a drop off, well, like how minor of a step off is it? Like, okay, Golden State, Houston, and number 3, and then you take a baby step down the stairs for like number 4, 5, and 6. Like, you can't even do that. Like, it doesn't even make sense. So, like Chris said, we might be back one time again. If not, college football preview season is not far away at all. We go through the conferences. I know a couple years ago we did 2 preview shows. This year we might do 1. But we just kind of go through, just a little news on the ACC, a little news on the Big Ten, a little news on the SEC, a little news on the Pac-12, and kind of just go through the main 5 power conferences. Normally, either a said team like Alabama is getting ready to repeat, or a team like Oklahoma's got a new quarterback, or, Ohio State's got some top 5 stars. There's stuff like that even if you're not a super diehard fan is out there due to ESPN, or what team had the best recruiting offseason or something like that. So college football talk's not far away, and I'm starting to see more talk about like win predictions for teams over under wins. Obviously, when you hear NFL talk, that kind of correlates to college football because college football starts before NFL does. So football season's close. Hopefully everyone's enjoying their summer. I am. It's hot as hell down here, but I'm not going to ever complain because I live in a place where it's very cold up north. I think it's been 105 for like the past 4 days in a row, but that's fine. I'm doing okay. I'll never complain about not seeing snow. So until our next show, Chris and I, we love the people to listen. We always enjoy your support. Like Chris said, we might have one more basketball show. Football's kicking off very, very soon, and the fun's going to come because, like I said it last week, college football doesn't start off slow anymore. The first week of the year, there's at least 5 or 6 games that like you'll legit want to watch, even if it's not your team. It's not like a 32-0 blowout. It's like a legit damn good game where you have a ranked team playing another ranked team or a ranked team playing someone that can upset them. So enjoy the rest of your July. Get a little bit of golf if you can, if it's not too hot, and we'll be back soon. Have a good day. We're out. Peace.
It's easy to change a room with new carpet. It's even easier with new carpet financing from the Home Depot. With up to 24 months financing on special order installed carpet with your Home Depot consumer credit card. So make a dramatic change, but make paying for it a little less dramatic. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. With credit approval for qualifying purchases made on the Home Depot consumer credit card. Not available on the Home Depot Home Improver card. Terms and conditions apply. Excludes services purchased in-home. May not combine with any credit offer. Valid July 19th through July 25th. It's easy to change a room with new carpet. It's even easier with new carpet financing from the Home Depot. With up to 24 months financing on special order installed carpet with your Home Depot consumer credit card. So make a dramatic change, but make paying for it a little less dramatic. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. With credit approval for qualifying purchases made on the Home Depot consumer credit card. Not available on the Home Depot Home Improver card. Terms and conditions apply. Excludes services purchased in-home. May not combine with any credit offer. Valid July 19th through July 25th.